Hello, and on the gaming table today, another look at the game I'm building up here, the new ideas that I'm trying to put on the table, kind of a grid-based game here. So let's just take a look again. Very similar to the last video, I had the same force of Dark Elves and Chaos here that I was putting on the table. So again, Dark Elves on the right, Chaos on the left. And here I was trying to test out a couple of other ideas around kind of casualties, making the game a little less bloody immediately, as mentioned in the last video. The last video was the bloody version, and here I modified the rules a bit to make it less bloody, but to see what happened. And also to try it a lot more with the terrain in terms of things like getting terrain advantage. So whether you call that, being some sort of defended status or being protected or having some sort of combat advantage from defended terrain or that kind of terrain. Trying that out. So here, as the game progressed, being able to test all those rules is useful, and that's part of why I'm doing these and taking a look at what happens. Here you'll be able to see as well that I'm using little white markers on units as they kind of take their turns. A little bit like Strength and Honor, for example, where units take turns and they're able to do different things at different times. Again, having to mark them here to kind of keep track of everything. Again, when I'm running both sides, it gets a little bit confusing since I'm soloing this out. So just using that as a little guide to help me remember what had been done, basically. It was interesting here, the defended hill towards the bottom of the screen here actually held up pretty well. There was kind of basic Dark Elf spearmen and crossbows, things like that. Sort of fairly decent quality troops, but not great. Defending against Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights, which are obviously, tougher, harder troops. And it took quite a while for the Chaos units to kind of break down that position on the hill. That was interesting to see. So the kind of the rules in that regard that I'm thinking about for the terrain were working out in that way. Similarly, in the middle, the kind of the little village area there's some defended or protected spots there as well, where the Dark Elves had some advantage, but the Chaos managed to push through those a little bit more easily. Just the luck of the dice, really. I mentioned in the last video that, there seemed to be a difference between deploying deep and narrow versus wide and thin. It seemed to be that going wider, so you're kind of covering more of your flanks, seemed to be advantageous. So the Dark Elves in this particular battle, you may notice that they've deployed in a single line, largely, so not supported directly from behind, but they do have cavalry reserve in 2 or 3 spots along the line. And so that was kind of to try out if there's a breakthrough, can that cavalry kind of get in and, drive back the breakthroughs, as it were. So the Dark Elves were playing that kind of game, kind of a counter-strike kind of game against the Chaos here. It's interesting how that works with some of the maneuver rules. How do you maneuver around on the grid and be able to get into the positions to be able to do that? I think it's working okay. I don't foresee any problems with what happened in this game. The Dark Elves did have bad run of the dice on some situations, and so kind of the number of actions that they managed to get versus what the Chaos managed to get, the Dark Elves were usually on the short end of the stick there. So although here at the end, as you'll see, Chaos kind of did win the day, that was not necessarily bad tactics or bad kind of results for the Dark Elves. It was more just that the initiative kept kind of flowing the Chaos way, and that just kind of helped them out by just, doing more. But that was a little bit luck of the dice for them as well. As I'm just talking about that, you can see here at the bottom of the screen that the Chaos forces got badly pushed back from the defended hill position there. And the Dark Elves have started kind of a counter-strike at the bottom. They've got like their Witch Elf kind of fanatic style units down there charging out and trying to deal with those pushback Chaos units marked in red. The red is kind of a confusion or disorder status, so they're less combat effective at the moment. And this was one of the things I think I will change as a result of this test is that to this point, kind of, if you're in the clear, if you're in the open, it was like, that's that kind of disordered or confused status is easy to recover from. But I think I will modify that slightly so that it's not automatic. It's not quite so easy. Still make it fairly easy so you can get units back in the game, but it's not automatic. So I think we'll do that. Another one that I came across is at the top of the screen, you can see there's a little wood there, and there was some fighting going on over that wood. But I think what I've discovered is that the kind of moving through that kind of terrain where it's tricky terrain to move through. It's a little bit too difficult. I need to modify that a little bit to make it a little bit easier. And I think to do that, I think it's really defining the terrain types and how they interact with movement. Rather than trying to change the way I'm doing movement, I think the answer is simply to redefine terrain types. One thing I've tried to do in this game is give each terrain type only 4 basic kind of status effects on the game to keep terrain pretty simple. And I'm pretty happy with how that's gone. Basically by defining 4 game effects and saying each piece of terrain can do 1 or more of these 4 things. It keeps it simple, and then you can really just define any piece of terrain the way the players like around those 4 effects, right? So you're not saying, here's a rule for hills, here's a rule for forests, here's a rule for orchards, here's a rule for villages, right? You can just say, here's a piece of terrain, this is the set of things that it does. And I think that's a much easier way to manage and remember. Keeps it a lot simpler. And yeah, it just takes away some of the mental fatigue of trying to remember what does a piece of terrain do. So here you can see as the game's progressed, Chaos has managed to kind of push through that village area in the middle. Wasn't easy going, but they managed to get through there in the end. On the hill, initially the Chaos forces got driven back, the Dark Elves had a counter-strike, and then some of the Chaos units managed to get back in there again. It got kind of confused, as I said, a bit of mayhem, always good in this game. And then eventually some of those Chaos units from the center kind of managed to turn and take the other positions at the bottom and the top of the screen and the flank. Things got a little bit messy, and yeah, eventually the Dark Elves would have been subdued here. I've managed to figure out how to kind of do an end game. I wasn't quite sure when I started out what I would do for that, but now I've come up with a mechanic based on play that I think works in terms of this is how a game can naturally end. If it's just a pickup battle, if it's not a scenario battle, then here's a way to define, the basic winning and losing of the game. So again, I'm pretty happy with that as well. Anyway, the game's not quite over here, but I think we'll wrap it up there for this video. I hope you're finding this interesting. I'm getting all of these pieces kind of all written up. Hopefully I'll have it in a shareable version soon, so if anyone's interested, let me know. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.